Spencer goes too far. One morning, Mike and Toby were at the station when Duke puffed in with some urgent information. "Haven't you all heard?" he said. "The Duke and Duchess are leaving." "The Duke and Duchess have been on this railway for a long time," said Toby. And while they're leaving, said Mike, "what's going to happen to Spencer?" "Maybe the Fat Controller might decide to keep him," said Duke. "Or either that or he'll be sent away for good," said Mike, but all the other engines weren't sure for now. But soon Duke arrived to see all the other engines gathered around, and there was the Duke and Duchess with the Fat Controller. The Duke and Duchess were trying not to cry. "We're all going to miss you, Topham," they said. "This railway has been good, but we'll be back soon enough," they said. And with that, the Duke and Duchess left when the ship departed. The Fat Controller soon turned his attention to the other engines. "Don't worry," he said. "They'll be back for sure, but for now, it looks like we've all got some work to do." All the other engines puffed away except for Spencer. The Fat Controller soon turned to him. "Spencer, are you all right?" "No," shouted Spencer. "The Duke and Duchess get to go on a holiday trip while I'm with you and those stupid losers," he said. "I've heard that they're going to send me to a railway where I have to get treated with respect." The Fat Controller soon ignored the rude remark. They are not your owners anymore," he said. "Really?" said Spencer. "Nobody owns me?" he said. "Well, actually," said the Fat Controller, "I am your new owner, Spencer." "What?" said Spencer. "I am under your command?" "You've always been under my command, Spencer," said the Fat Controller, but Spencer's enthusiasm sunk. "You know what?" he said. "I will not be treated or ordered around by the likes of you," he said, and Spencer chuffed crossly away. "This is going to be even more tougher than I thought," said the Fat Controller to himself. And indeed it was. Spencer soon stayed in the shed doing nothing. "It's not fair," he complained. "Nobody appreciates me, although I do try to work hard," he said to himself. All the other engines ignored Spencer, but they were still not happy with the fact he was on the railway. Thomas overheard and then puffed out to tell the others. But just then, Stafford, Rosie, Billy and Duke were at the signet area when Thomas puffed up. He told them all about what Spencer said. "He's so full of himself," said Billy. "He doesn't even understand the contraception of work," said Rosie. "If he carries on like that," said Stafford, "the Fat Controller might send him away for good." "Now let's not speculate and spread rumours," said Duke. Maybe he's lonely. Perhaps I'll go talk to him." And Duke puffed away. But by the time Duke came to the sheds, Spencer was still not happy. "Go away," he said snootily. "You'll dirty up my paintwork." "And why's that?" said Duke. "I was only being friendly," he said. "Engines would like you if you're nice to them." "You're not helping," said Spencer. "I've heard the Duke and Duchess were going to send me into a proper railway, a private railway where other engines don't have to do those stupid jobs you call working in dirty sidings," he said. "Well, maybe if the Duke comes back to Sodor, I might ask him to stick you in his museum. It's where you belong, isn't it?" Duke was cross. "I may be old," he said, but that doesn't mean I cannot do my work properly," he said. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to do what proper engines do, like doing their work," said Bertram. Said Duke. Well, it's only a matter of time until you get scrapped, Duke, said Spencer. You only last a few days on your rails, he said. Duke had had enough, and with that he steamed angrily out of the shed. Until later that day, Duke was still in a bad mood. He had just arrived at the same siding where the Fat Controller was waiting for him. At last, he asked Duke what was wrong, and then Duke told him what Spencer said to him. This is unacceptable, he said. I was willing to give Spencer a chance to redeem himself, but all he does is complain. I'll give him one last warning. But unfortunately, the Fat Controller didn't get the chance to. The next day later, Mike was shunting some empty coaches to the station when Spencer steamed in with a flatbed in front of him and bumped Mike's coaches hard, and they were derailed. My coaches! Snapped Mike. Oh, stop whining, said Spencer. You've also damaged my flatbed truck. I'm telling the Fat Controller, he said. But soon Duke arrived at the scene of the disaster when the Fat Controller popped up. The Fat Controller looked sternly at Spencer. Sir, said Spencer, Mike just damaged my flatbed truck. Actually, Spencer, said the Fat Controller, that was you, he said. You've actually used your flatbed truck to damage Mike's coaches, he said. Well, just because Mike is important doesn't mean he thinks he's better than me, said Spencer. Well, just because the Duke and Duchess have left doesn't mean you can make life miserable for the rest of us, shouted Mike. Stop it, groaned Spencer, and he bumped the coaches hard. Enough, said the Fat Controller. Spencer, you have been taking advantages over your behavior over the past few years, he said, and I can no longer tolerate this behavior on my railway, he said. But just then there was trouble. Falco came around the bend to avoid the crash, and then he went too fast, as he crashed into a turntable wall full of fuel tankers. Soon Scruff began to wake up. Wow, he said, this happened before when we were discussing about this turntable, he said. For a minute or two, said Mighty Mark, I thought Spencer was going to take them away for us, he said. But he didn't, groaned Douglas. He wanted to cause a crash on purpose, shouted Bertram. The yard manager soon got angry and ran out to tell the Fat Controller. Then he told the Fat Controller what Spencer did, and he grew crosser still. That's it, he said. You've sabotaged my railway. You've damaged Mike's railway coaches. You were mean to Stephen when he first arrived on my railway, and I will no longer tolerate your behaviour on my railway. Fine, said Spencer. It's about time I went to a proper railway, and he puffed away. Come back, Spencer, said the Fat Controller, but Spencer didn't answer. But sir, said Mike, you can't let Spencer go now, he said. Either that or he'll run out of coal, said the Fat Controller. But until that evening, Spencer didn't come back. All the other engines searched everywhere for Spencer, but he was nowhere to be seen. Maybe he'll run out of coal and tumble down a mountain, said Scruff. Or he might have went on to them ships, said Mighty Mark. Oh, really? Said Douglas. And I really both for locomotive like Spencer on one of them ships, he said. What a show-off. At least At least he's not coming back here, said Bertram. He was mean to me once before, and for the first time in their lives, all the other engines were sure to be safe, as they were before.